Thank you for watching QTV News. We take a look at stories making headlines in our news. 2 more coronavirus patients have been discharged as the country has, for a 5th day running, not recorded any new cases of the disease. Government has thwarted an attempt by Mopani Copper Mines to lay off over 11,000 workers and place its Kitwe and Muflira mines on care and maintenance. And over 160 people have been left homeless in Kalabo district after 28 houses collapsed due to floods. With the news in detail, my name is Diana Sumbwe. 2 more coronavirus patients have been discharged as Zambia has, for a 5th consecutive day, not recorded any new cases of COVID-19. Speaking during the daily coronavirus briefing in Lusaka, Health Minister Dr. Chitalu Chirufya says 104 tests were conducted in the last 24 hours with none found positive. Dr. Chirufya adds that 2 more patients that were admitted in the early batch tested negative twice and have since been discharged, bringing the total number of patients discharged to 7. He says the 31 patients that remain under the care of health professionals are stable. Dr. Chirufya, however, states that the fact that no new cases have been recorded in the last 5 days and the discharges does not mean Zambia should drop its guard. He has reiterated the need for members of the public to adhere to health guidelines.
Amongst the 104 tests that we conducted in the last 24 hours, none was positive. Furthermore, 2 of the clients that were admitted in the early batch tested negative twice and have been discharged. That brings then our statistics to total number of 1,085 tests performed, 39 positive, 1 death, 7 discharges. The 31 cases that remain under our care are stable, 2 on the Copper Belt and 29 in Lusaka. Of the 7,356 persons classified as high risk due to their travel history, we have now discharged from the mandatory 14-day quarantine period, 1,601. A cumulative total of 381 adults have been tested, have been screened, and have been classified as non-cases and discharged home. Our rapid response teams have been on the go responding to the alerts from the community, and for this we place on record profuse gratitude to members of the community who have been alert and have been engaging our rapid response teams whenever they suspect that there could be a case of COVID-19. This high index of suspicion needs to be sustained in this fight against COVID-19. Amongst the 104 tests that we conduct.
Meanwhile, Dr. Chirufya has urged members of the public to desist from politicizing the fight against COVID-19, wondering why some members of the public would question the statistics being given out. The minister says government finds no value in concealing figures or information regarding the coronavirus pandemic in the country.
Colleagues, we have a highly credible team of technocrats leading the response. They are internationally recognized. Give them the support, and let us not politicize this fight. It should be our collective success, legacy. If we overcome a threat of public health such as cholera, we did defeat cholera using the same structure. We know that there are many places where there are higher numbers. We do know that. And we acted in solidarity. And I'm emphasizing that when a nation is faced with a grave threat of this magnitude, countrymen and women are supposed to challenges come in, we hold hands to fight that. This, like I said, we're not recording new cases. Treat the matrices that new confirmances were even discharging. And I did say There are jurisdictions where we have seen moments of respite and a flare-up. Our borders are open. We are a landlocked country. As all the countries around have locked us out, we essentially are locked out.
Government has rejected a notice by Mopani Copper Mines to lay off more than 11,000 workers and place the mines in Kitwe and Mufulira on care maintenance, citing COVID-19 and the fluctuation of copper prices. In a video conference with Minister of Mines Richard Musukwa and Mopani Copper Mines Chief Executive Officer Nathan Bullock, Clenco Head Copper Africa Mark Davis said he has decided to put the two mines on care maintenance for 3 months from 7th April due to COVID-19. Mr. Davis said some management staff will be laid off while unionized workers would obtain their salaries for 3 months, after which the situation would be up for review. But Mr. Musukwa says government has studied both the letter sent by MCM and the video conference has rejected the attempt by Mopani to put the two mines on care and maintenance because it does not conform with the law. The minister has told a media briefing that the mining company failed to provide clear evidence of what has happened that would trigger MCM to claim force majeure. Here's a report.
The coronavirus, which has already infected more than 1.3 million people, resulting in more than 75,000 deaths, is not just a medical crisis, but a social and economic issue. International Labour Organization estimates that more than 25 million people could become unemployed, with a loss of workers' income of as much as 3.4 trillion United States dollars. It is already becoming clear that these numbers demonstrate the magnitude of the impact of COVID-19. In Zambia, Mopani Copper Mines is planning to lay off more than 11,000 workers and place the mines in Kitwe and Mufulira on care maintenance, citing COVID-19 and fluctuations of copper prices. Mines Minister Richard Musukwa explains.
Colleagues, later in the afternoon, after the meeting, an electronic copy of a letter dated 6th April 2020 addressed to the Director of Mines and copied to my office was emailed from Mopani Copper Mine. Colleagues, the letter claimed that the company had taken the action pursuant to Section 37, subsection 1D of the Mines and Minerals Development Act, which provides for closure of a mine based on force majeure.
Mr. Musukwa is surprised that the price of copper and the outbreak of COVID-19 can be cited as one of the reasons necessitating the need to claim force majeure.
I have further rejected an attempt to give government less than 24 hours notice to effect layoff of in excess of over 11,000 total employees. This is a joke. This is a country of laws. We cannot have a multinational company that can dictate to a legitimate government. Mopani Copper Mine and its parent company, Glencore, must obey the Zambian law and do the right thing. And for now, their quest to put operations at Mopani, Kitwe, and Mufulira under mining and concentrator on care and maintenance and only remain with the smelter and the refinery is unacceptable, and that government has since written to Mopani to hold the entire process.
Recently, government suspended import duties on the importation of concentrates in the mining sector to ease pressure on the sector, and also suspend export duty on precious metals and crocodile skin. However, despite these measures by government, the mining company still insists on laying off workers. It is for this reason the mines minister is asking Zambians to take a center stage.
It's time Zambian local businessmen take center stage and interest in many of these mining industries instead of depending on multinational companies, which in many cases want to issue blackmail threats, and they'll tell you this is it for us, we have hit the dead end. For Zambians and locals, we will never reach a dead end because this is our country.
At the moment, the fate of the more than 11,000 workers hangs in the balance. Favorite Kalando, QTV News in Lusaka.
The Electoral Commission of Zambia, ECZ, has ruled out the possibility of postponing all pending and subsequent by-elections in view of the coronavirus. PF Secretary General Davis Miller has called on the Electoral Commission of Zambia Chairperson Justice Esau Chulu to consider postponing all future by-elections in order to safeguard the lives of Zambians and curtail possible transmission of the coronavirus. But ECZ Public Relations Manager Margaret Chimanse has told QTV News in an interview that the Commission will follow what is provided by the law. Ms. Chimanse says the Constitution requires that the Commission conduct elections within a specified period. She says the Commission can only cancel an election on the guidance of the Attorney General. And Ms. Chimanse says the Commission is watching the situation closely and will advise the public on how it will proceed with regards to the voter registration, which is scheduled to start in May this year. She has, however, encouraged members of the public to take advantage of the online voter registration system in view of the coronavirus.
We are watching the situation very closely. Obviously, we are all concerned about the coronavirus and everything that is associated with it. However, we do have that online platform where people could pre-register. That should be able to help capture a number of people. But I'm sure going forward, the Commission will be able to make a statement as regards how we proceed regarding the voter registration if there will be any changes. The Commission will always follow what is provided by the law, and the Constitution requires that we undertake the elections within a specified period. If anything happens and there would be need to change, that would be something the Commission then would need to get guidelines from Attorney General, because this is a constitutional matter. So I'm sure if there was need to postpone or reschedule, we would always get guidance from Attorney General's office. But standing as we are guided by the law, all by-elections would have to proceed.
African Responsible Citizens Platform fears the country will experience high levels of political violence ahead of the 2021 general election. Organization Director Simon Kabanda says this is because the country has continued to witness political violence during the by-elections, both at local government and parliamentary level. Mr. Kabanda has told QTV News that in order to curb this problem, his organization has embarked on a project dubbed Political Violence Accountability, aimed at sensitizing electorates on this matter. He says as the country moves towards the 2021 elections, there is need for political parties to take a center stage by ensuring that the country records election free of violence. Mr. Kabanda says political violence is a big problem that requires all stakeholders to get involved in addressing the matter.
And the project and activities to address and prevent levels of violence cannot be implemented in a short time. And it requires that all those organizations that are preparing to participate in the 2021 elections, they mainstream or they incorporate the issue of political violence accountability in their project. So we are basically calling upon all organizations, civil society organizations, the church, and all the stakeholders that are participating in the 2021 elections to incorporate the issue of political violence accountability, so that the people become aware of this issue. They begin to detest it. I mean, members of the public begin to detest it and begin to denounce it. But there should be a concerted effort by various stakeholders to ensure that we confront this issue, so that as we get towards 2021 elections, we
Democratic Party President Harry Kalaba has called on the government to empower Zambian tailors by giving them business to make face masks amid of the coronavirus pandemic. In an interview with Q News, Mr. Kalaba says in the absence of industries such as Kafue and Munungushi textiles, there is need to use local tailors across the country to begin manufacturing face masks to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. He says government through district commissioners should mobilize tailors in every district and give them specifications for the face mask to enable every Zambian have a mask as opposed to the current situation where mostly only leaders and the privileged few are using masks. Mr. Kalaba notes that the emergence of COVID-19 has exposed the need for the textile industry, which could have been manufacturing the face masks. He says this is why the Democratic Party wants Zambia to be an industrial base.
Zambia has to be an industrial base. Now, in the absence of that, let's use our tailors to begin manufacturing these face masks all across the country. Let government bring them together in each district. Let the district commissioners do some work for once. Meet these tailors, give them specifications. They start doing these face masks so that every Zambian can have a face mask on their face, as opposed to what we are seeing only leaders, mostly are the ones wearing, and the ordinary populace don't have. Go to Soweto, go to City Market, go to Lumumba Market. How many people are wearing face masks? It's because they're in short supply. We need to begin giving our tailors to begin doing this.
And Mr. Kalaba says government should not only focus on the fight against COVID-19 and forget about all other sectors. He says government should also look into the high price of minimum, the plight of retirees, and attend to areas that have been hit by floods. Mr. Kalaba says the same tenacity that government has employed in the fight against COVID-19 must be employed in ensuring that people stop queuing for minimum.
Queuing for minimum ended in 1990. We don't want it to come back in this country again. We want to see that our people can buy minimum at affordable prices. We want to see a smile on the face of our retirees because their check is being paid on time. We also want to see that those who are infected or who are affected by the floods begin getting relief support from the DMMU. Let this fight be multi-sectorial. Let us ensure that all sectors of the economy are being looked at, like they're doing in Australia. They're fighting COVID-19, but they're also fighting the wildfires, like they're doing in America. They're fighting terrorism right now, they're also fighting COVID-19. So it just can't be one sector and we forget other sectors.
Patriots for Economic Progress PEP President Sean Tembo has called upon the Bank of Zambia to immediately intervene in the foreign exchange market and arrest the free fall of the local currency. Mr. Tembo has noted with regret the continued free fall of the Zambian kwacha against major convertible currencies, depreciating by more than 35% from 14 kwacha tungwe to 19 kwacha tungwe per US dollar within a space of 6 weeks. He notes that one of the key mandates of the central bank is to maintain financial stability, stating that the rapid depreciation of the kwacha, as is currently the case, undermines financial stability. Hence, it is unacceptable for the Bank of Zambia to sit idle while the economy melts. Mr. Tembo has further called on government to draft appropriate economic policies to address the various factors that have led to the rapid depreciation of the kwacha in the medium term, while the Bank of Zambia should intervene in the forex market in the short term. He states that should the Zambian kwacha continue on its current downward spiral, the inevitable end result will be hyperinflation, similar to that which happened in Zimbabwe, and the central bank will be compelled to print high-value notes, a situation whose damage to the economy will almost be irreversible in the short to medium term.
We have noted, with a lot of regret, the continued free fall of the Zambian kwacha, whereby only 6 weeks ago it was trading at about 14.2 kwacha per US dollar, and fast forward to today, it is trading at about 19.2 kwacha per US dollar. We believe that this is time for the central bank, the Bank of Zambia, to immediately intervene and arrest the free fall of the kwacha, because if this continues, then we as a nation risk having a hyperinflationary situation whereby we are soon going to have to print 10 billion kwacha banknotes, and we may have to start using a wheelbarrow to basically carry money to the local grocery store just to go and buy a bag of meal. And once we reach such a situation, our economy will be very, very difficult to reverse in terms of the damage in the medium term. And so we call upon the Bank of Zambia to immediately do the right thing. And it must be noted that one of the major reasons why we have found ourselves in this situation today is because of the huge amounts of money we need to remit outside of the country through debt servicing, which has been brought about by contracting huge amounts of debt by the PF and its government.
The opposition alliance says ZESCO has no capacity to supply electricity to the mines and other surrounding areas on the Copperbelt. Alliance chairperson Charles Mulupi says this is because the electricity supply infrastructure to the mines belongs to the Copperbelt Energy. Mr. Mulupi says the decision by government that ZESCO will now start supplying power to the Copperbelt using existing Copperbelt Energy Corporation infrastructure is inappropriate, as it is sending a wrong signal to local and foreign investors. Recently, Energy Minister Matthew Nkuwa indicated that ZESCO will continue supplying uninterrupted power to the mines and domestic customers on the Copperbelt despite collapse of negotiations between ZESCO and CEC on a new power supply agreement following the expiry of the previous agreement.
CEC is also owned 24% by government. So all those things that are 24% is owned by government through the CCNIA. A component of CEC is owned by the public. When CEC was set, a number of citizens went and bought shares on the London or on the Stock Exchange. You will consider all these, and some of them are ministers in this current government. They bought shares in CEC. Do they consider all these facts? Let us not repeat the mistake which PF made when they renationalized Zamtel from Lap Green, and they lost litigation which cost this country a lot of money. Let us not repeat the mistake that this government has also made, the PF government, in liquidating KCM against what the law says. Now that's with KCM, and the owners of KCM will go to court. In fact, I've already gone to court, and this government is losing. Why do they keep making the same mistake?
Economist Noah Nkoma says the purchasing power parity of the Zambian consumer has been eroded by the continued depreciation of the kwacha against convertible currencies and the rising inflation rate. Mr. Nkoma has attributed the depreciation of the Zambian kwacha against the US dollar to the collapse of the copper prices on the international market. Mr. Nkoma has told QTV News that Zambia is a commodity-driven foreign exchange earning country which has not been spared from the happenings on the international market influenced by the United States dollar. He states that with what is happening with copper prices, the country will definitely continue to see the kwacha coming under intense pressure. And Mr. Nkoma says there is need for the country to prioritize spending with a shift from consumer-inclined spending to production-inclined spending in order to create more economic activity.
Inflation, by simple description, is basically a thief. If you have 14 kwacha today, the 14 kwacha post-inflation is not the same. It becomes 7 kwacha. So what basically what happens is the fact that the cost of doing business becomes more expensive. The cost of doing business is transmitted to the consumer. So a loaf of bread which is costing 20 kwacha today, tomorrow, because of inflation, it will be costing 30 kwacha. So it is definitely going to have a bearing or an impact on the Zambian consumer and on the cost of doing business. That is what we cannot run away from. Well, I think, to me, we need to begin to, one, prioritize our spending with a shift from consumer-inclined spending to production-inclined spending, so that you create more economic activity and consequently expand your economy. The GDP that we are now sitting on is not comfortable space to be in. So we need to now begin to take those actions that basically endear a more productive economy than what we are seeing.
Free Press Initiative FBI Zambia has welcomed the conviction and sentencing to 2 years imprisonment of a Chipata PF cadre, Frank Mwale, for assaulting Breeze FM journalist Grace Lungu. The convict assaulted the journalist while she was covering the Nkomba ward by-election in February 2019. FBI Zambia founder Joan Chira says Monday's judgment by the Lundazi Magistrate Court should serve as a strong warning to all political party cadres, regardless of affiliation, that assault on journalists will not go unpunished. Ms. Chira says journalists deserve total protection and freedom to carry out their duties. And the Zambia Institute of Independent Media Alliance, ZIMA, says the conviction and jailing of a Patriotic Front cadre, Frank Mwale, for assaulting Breeze FM journalist Grace Lungu is a victory to the media in the country. Zima Vice President Jubio Zulu says the alliance organization had followed the matter with keen interest and noted the many maneuvers that were made for the journalists to withdraw the matter from court. Ms. Zulu has commended the journalists for exhibiting great integrity by standing her ground to ensure the case continued in court.
This is telling us that indeed we can trust the judiciary system because it is there for our own good. But this also serves as a warning to the would-be offenders, especially the cadres from be it the opposition political parties, be it the current regime, that the law will not tolerate anyone that is there to assault the journalist. And this correlates well with the presidential directive that they should not tolerate people that perpetrate violence against the journalists, because the journalists are there for the noble cause, and that is to protect the interests of the Zambians and also to make sure that they disseminate the necessary information at a given time. So we also want to commend Grace, because there were so many maneuvers that were going around offering her money and so forth and so on so that she can let go of the case. But she stood firm, and the integrity is what we are currently upholding, because that has shown that the judiciary can work together with the journalists, and the journalists can trust what the judiciary is able to do. And so as other journalists, we want to urge them to come forward. If there's something like that that is happening, let's not be conversant and then make sure that maybe they are paid for and all, and then you forgo a case. Those cases are meant to make sure that you are protected.
FAO Zambia Group has donated hospital equipment and accessories worth $590,000 to Betcure Hospital in Lusaka. The donations, FAO Zambia Group, represented by Mission Pharma, Toyota Zambia and Vehicle Center Zambia, includes a ventilator, an anesthesia system and a compressor pump, as well as 29 other items. FAO Zambia Chief Group Executive Officer Dino Binyanchi says the group acknowledges the work that Betcure Hospital has continued to undertake in providing quality health care to the Zambian citizens, most of whom are from underprivileged communities. Mr. Binyachi notes that the hospital requires reliable hospital equipment in order to provide quality health care and lessen pressure on public hospitals, especially during this period when the nation is fighting COVID-19.
I've been supporting Betcure now for a number of years. We started with a donation in 2018, again in 2019, and I'm proud again that we can again donate to this hospital that helps the local community and the community at large in Zambia through their efforts to support people, not always bearing cost in mind. They do a lot of it for free. But we're all very aware of the pandemic that's happening, COVID-19, and we all appreciate everybody complying with the guidelines implemented by government. And to support that, we are making this donation to support the hospital in their efforts to continue with that. And also through this, we will continue supporting a CFAO group to Betcure Hospital going forward.
And Betcure Hospital Medical Director Dr. Giorgio Lastroni says the donation will go a long way in helping to provide health care to children under 18 that access medical services for free. He says the hospital will continue working through the period of COVID-19, but that patients coming from outside Lusaka will have to wait until the current situation has died down.
All equipment that we will make very large use of, as you can see, we are still operating our children at the hospital. We are continuing, we will try to continue to offer services for the children of Zambia at this hospital through this difficult period, but by putting the mask and following all regulations that the government and the international guidelines are suggesting, we are still able to offer treatment and care for the children of Zambia in this hospital. We will try to continue as much as possible. Hopefully, we will still be blessed in Zambia with very few cases of COVID infection, and we're all praying that we will be able to make good use of all your equipment and donations and drugs in the next few days for a long period of time.
Basic Education Teachers Union of Zambia Betu's Secretary General Henry Sakala has appealed to ZESCO to reduce or reschedule the hours of load shedding to accommodate the lessons timetable so that every pupil can have access to lessons on ZNBC. Mr. Sakala has expressed concern on the standstill of the learning timetable. He has since called on education experts and the general public to partner with the Ministry of General Education in promoting other means of learning such as e-learning. Speaking when Betus made a donation of hand sanitizers, cleaning agents and masks worth about 20,000 kwacha to the Ministry of General Education, Mr. Sakala is hopeful that the donation will contribute to the fight against COVID-19.
ZESCO, that once the timetable is actually availed to the nation, including to them, then also take into consideration that learners are away from the physical classrooms. So they will treat the TV platform as the only classroom. So as much as possible, if they are able to cut on the hours of load shedding, would actually be the happiest to see that instead of 10 hours, or they even restructure their load shedding. If, for example, the timetable says the active learning hours on that platform, they're from 8 hours up to 15 hours. They restructure their load shedding so that they allow access to this information to as many people as possible.
And Minister of General Education Permanent Secretary Jobix Kalumba says the donation will be used in schools and other offices within the Ministry of General Education.
We know very well that schools are closed, but we have head teachers, we have senior teachers, we have deputy head teachers. We have also offices here where many of our people are coming to interact with us. And so, if we don't have access to such facilities, we may run the risk of getting exposed to the virus. So what we have done must be appreciated by every well-meaning Zambian within the Ministry of Education, because we know you are contributing towards giving us an environment where we can operate without having a lot of worries in as far as the virus is concerned. We are going to ensure that these facilities, this donation goes to various departments within the Ministry of Education. I can assure you, many of the children, once the schools are open, will have access to these facilities.
To end the news, we take a look at stories making headlines. 2 more coronavirus patients have been discharged as the country has, for a 5th day running, not recorded any new cases of the disease. Government has thwarted an attempt by Mopani Copper Mines to lay off over 11,000 workers and place its Kitwe and Fulira mines on care and maintenance. And over 160 people have been left homeless in Kalawa district after 28 houses collapsed due to floods. On that note, we end the news. Thank you for watching.